do we choose our lives, or even if they're chosen for us? Like, how does this process look like? What goes into it? How many are involved in this process? It's something I've been thinking about and wondering about a lot lately, because I see eternity as neutral in a sense, meaning it's the same idea as a particle not existing until it is observed. So where we are exists, but it exists only as a phantom with no one observing it. Like I brought about the previous analogy a couple of videos ago. It's a record on a DVD. It's just a recording. It's just layers of recordings. Okay, and the further your observation, the further your focus goes away from a centralized point, the more static it becomes. The more focused you are, the more cohesive it becomes. So the analogy being your body, your soul is not in the body, your body is in the soul. And Bashar talks about this, and I would agree with this. With the analogy of the DVD player, you can say that the DVD itself is like the soul, and the body is like the player. It is what is enabling the motion, the process of experience. So it's what is enabling that centralized focus to take place for you to be able to observe the record, right? And the player has to be turned on. It has to be given energy, electricity in this case, in order for that illusion. So a DVD on its own is just one piece, and it's an illusion, but when you turn it on, that illusion turns into motion. And that motion is what creates the experience, and then is filtered through our brain, which is like the analogy of the TV screen. The screen is what we see through that filtered system of the DVD and DVD player. And it is just a square box. We see a very minuscule portion of what is actually taking place in the context of eternity. And just because everything exists in creation that you could possibly fathom doesn't necessarily mean that everything should be experienced. And this is where I have my problem with this place, obviously, as I've been rambling on about in the community posts for days now, because it bothers me deeply. Oh, it bothers me so deeply. So, yeah. And what's interesting is that a lot of like religions, they essentially believe that you were created as you were born. You were born into this world, and that is when your life was created. And then afterward is where you will spend eternity. I don't believe that is the case. And it doesn't necessarily mean that all that is doesn't create new souls. Of course it creates new souls. But then it also doesn't create new souls. I've discussed this before, because everything is created in that one moment, the only moment that ever exists. So even a new soul has been there forever, because when else would it have been created? At what point? When there is only one point to create. Now, I do believe that many of us perhaps existed in a sort of cocoon, in a state of, in a womb, right? We exist. I do see that eternal light as like a womb, because it nourishes, it fulfills, it continuously regenerates, and it is life-filling. So, quote unquote, new souls spent eternity in this cocoon of light, in endless bliss. However, I do have to say that some of these souls were created for the sole purpose of experiencing certain experiences, to jump into the DVD player and to become that character in that movie. Now, perhaps it's like certain signatures, or, certain attributes that make up the composition of the soul, that it automatically attracts, a certain incarnation or a situation. And that's where perhaps we become a sort of fallen angel, because a place like this, I've always been, as I remember, looking at the stars and knowing from the top of the firmament. Yeah. So yeah, I researched the case today, and I don't do these things out of morbid curiosity. I occasionally watch about these cases because I really, really feel for the people who had to go through these absolute nightmares. And you might say, well, it hasn't happened to you. What's it to you? Who cares? And that's wrong, because it did happen to me. And it also happened to you. Because even though in this place I feel completely and fully disconnected from everyone and everything, and very distant from anything that resembles creation, I still understand on a fundamental, deeper soul level that all is still one. And all is still one, and we are one. And that if something happens, something terrible happens to somebody, it does happen to all of us, and it affects all of us. The purpose of this video is, whether we're tricked to come here or we make it on our own free will, I want to see what is actually like shown or presented before a soul, before they take the plunge into the abyss of this nightmare we're in. Like, it's just hard for me to imagine. Like, this particular case was a 20-year-old guy who was he was in the military in Malaysia. And these absolute lunatics consulted a witch doctor, which on its own probably already summoned some demonic forces. And the witch doctor, they're looking for the person who stole a laptop. And so they accused this particular guy of stealing the laptop. 18 of them. They strapped him to a table, and it was a clothing iron. It was a clothing iron. I'm not going to go into more detail, but they did it to him and refused to give him proper medical care, and this ordeal lasted for hours and hours, and then subsequently he died. And that's not all the injustice in this case. The original 6 main perpetrators originally received the death sentence. That was later overturned and had death sentence turned into 6 years, and this guy's parents had to watch the trial this entire time. The only thing worse is being the parents of this individual. So this is just inconceivably horrifying. Like, can you imagine, like, the analogy of a DVD, a movie? Can you imagine, like, seeing that in a movie and being like, oh, I want to experience that. Let me jump in. That looks like an interesting experience. Like every movie that you watch, do you want to experience that movie? Do you go, wow? Yeah, sure. Some characters people would love to experience, right? There's certain fantasies people have, and so have I, and that's not news. But I don't understand if it was on, it was like, if it was by his own free will, and he saw the potential or the very high likelihood of this occurring during his lifetime before he incarnated. I'm sure he did see it, or maybe he didn't. That's my question. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe a very limited picture is shown to us before our incarnation of what we're going to experience. Like very basic things. Maybe, oh, these are your parents. This is your neighborhood. This will probably be your job. But then again, what about the perpetrators too? If it's their choice and you're observing a lifetime that you're interested in playing the character of, there's a very high likelihood that you would become a torturer, a monster. Would you willingly just jump in and play that role with open arms and say, wow, looks like a great... If that is the case, that they are choosing to play this role, then they willingly and consciously know on a higher soul level that they will be hurting people. And by hurting people, it means hurting themselves, since we're all one. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Or what about the other, all kinds of sickening mental stuff that people develop, all kinds of terrible things. It's not simply an attribute of nature versus nurture. There is a generational degradation going on here, where it's a cyclical pattern of subjugation of the soul, it seems like. Not development, not evolution. If you have a trauma passed on from one to another, and it continues a certain pattern of abuse, for example, in what way, shape, or form is that evolution? Unless someone breaks the cycle, in that case, sure. But it still wasn't broken for all the generations prior, was it? They're not showing anything before incarnation. That may be true. Evil is blossoming within humanity. It is. I can feel the rage in the air. I could see it on people. And the strange looks I've been getting, it's really weird. Every job I've done over the years has to absolutely, without a doubt, have some kind of weird, bizarre shit going on. This is no exception either. I hope that life on other planets is better than this hell. But, well, break the cycle, in the beginning of this video, I discussed that everything does exist, right, in the eternal moment of creation, including movies that are worse than this one. But it doesn't mean that we have to experience them. Actually, I really think most of creation is in a static state. That it's immovable, and I don't want to necessarily say off limits to souls, but not really being touched by souls that much. For whatever reason, that's not the case here. But yes, other planets eternally exist in the forever moment in infinite variations of them. Right? Just imagine the DVD disc and sequels upon sequels stacked upon each other with no end in sight. Like Rick and Morty. Sure, there are really terrible other planets too. Even worse than here, but that's really hard to imagine, actually, because there's no limits to horror here. And then the fact that, given the right circumstances, everyone has the potential for evil. Everyone does. And it's been proven over and over again during periods of stress, high anxiety and survival, war. And that's pretty much all we've done is war. I don't believe in the conventional history of what we were told of this planet, but I do believe some of it is true. And I do believe that in the Middle Ages, 1 out of 10 people died as a result of war. And we haven't made it better now. We just compartmentalize things and put the horror into different boxes, whereas before the horror was evenly distributed. Now it's compartmentalized in shady little boxes all over the world. I feel extremely limited in what I can do here. Oh, so do I, Steve. I mean, limited is an understatement. Limited, disconnected, just the feeling of everything around you being disingenuous. Anyway, yeah, so the main point of this video is like, what do you think souls are shown prior to incarnation? Do you think that the pedophile, knowing that he would likely become that, do you think that that pure soul in eternity would be like, that's a fascinating experience to have? And would he willingly jump into that experience? Or the mass murderer? Or the warlord? And we've all done bad things too, We've all done bad things, and we all have the potential to do bad things. And I don't know if anything's evolving here, guys. I don't know. Just technology at a rapid pace. Just technology. Anyway, check out the face peelers. Speaking of strange phenomena, I have never seen anything like this. This is like a psyop of orders of magnitudes of weirdness. I never heard of this phenomenon. Apparently, it's been going on for a while, but it's something like a blend of an alien invasion and military operation all into one happening in South America. And I've never heard anything like it. It's incredible. Definitely check out some of the videos. Just put in face peelers of the Amazon on YouTube and let me know what you think about that, because that is a new level of mystery to me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we were shown before we came here, guys. Because theoretically, we can see everything in eternity. There shouldn't be any limitations on what we're able to observe and experience. So I wonder if that poor guy did training with a clothing iron before he incarnated, see what he could handle, because supposedly God doesn't give us more than we can handle, which I don't believe. I've been given more than I can handle in some certain circumstances. I'm sure have you. All for the evolution of the soul, I guess. The conclusion to this somewhat cynical video is that it all remains a mystery. What this all is. Even with all my experiences, I don't really feel a whole lot closer to solving anything. I really don't. And that's a sad place to be.